As a filmmaker, one of the most useful exercises I've found is to break down scenes by my favorite filmmakers to see exactly where they put the camera, what coverage they got, and how they told the story with the materials they had. Of course, there's no way of knowing exactly what ended up on the cutting room floor, but I can look at what did make the film. I'm here to share my thoughts on how a specific scene from some of my favorite films impacted me from shot to shot. And as always, I'm interested in hearing how you felt as well. Today we'll be going through a scene from Ari Aster's Hereditary. My name is Thomas Mendolia, and this is Shot to Shot. To give a bit of context and warning, the following contains spoilers. Charlie has passed away in a terrible car accident as her older brother Peter was driving. In working through her grief, Charlie and Peter's mother, Annie, has recently been looking into contacting Charlie's spirit after discovering she possesses the talents of a spirit medium. In such a short time, Ari Aster has already proven himself as a masterful filmmaker, and this scene highlights his unique ability to utilize the camera to switch back and forth between perspectives, subjective, objective, different points of view of characters. He's already a master of creating tension, scares, and taking the audience on a wild ride. Shot number 1. We start this scene with an incredibly impressive oneer that moves seamlessly from subjective to objective points of view, as well as interchanges between the points of view of different characters. It starts on a somewhat medium shot of one of Annie's model houses. The model itself is of a normal house that sits atop of several rotten houses that support it from underneath the soil. Without going too much into skepticism, this most likely represents the metaphor for this family and its decomposing ancestral line. The camera peds up and trucks left as it spirals upwards. The movement is objective to the filmmaker to start with. You can see more on the difference between objective and subjective camera movement in my previous video on Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The camera continues panning to the right as Steve and his son Peter walk down the stairs. As the camera picks them up, the perspective shifts to a subjective point of view. Particularly, this is subjective to Steve, which we'll see in a moment as the camera chooses him to focus on. For now, the camera moves with Steve and Peter down the hallway, as we see Annie in the background moving about in the periphery. We're on a pretty wide lens in order to achieve this field of view. If I had to guess, it'd be something around a 28mm lens. Something that's so enthralling about beginning the scene this way is starting it from Steve's point of view and keeping his wife Annie moving around in the background. This creates a bit of mystery into what her face looks like and how she's acting, which is directly in line with how Steve and Peter feel right now. They have no clue what to expect and have no idea why she's acting this way, especially so early in the morning. Ari Aster chooses to treat her as the other in this scene, setting us up for a scene that blindsides us all. The camera keeps slowly panning to the right and somewhat spirals around Peter and Steve to land in a profile as they stand on the outskirts of the room, watching Annie, who speaks off camera. Ari still does not cut to Annie just yet, but instead chooses to let this shot play out. Directors have several reasons for shooting a oneer, but in this case, I believe Ari Aster is choosing to do a oneer for several reasons, but the main reason being to let the performances be the most prominent aspect of the scene in a very theatrical sense. He doesn't place the camera in a wide shot and let the scene play out without movement though. He's still present, but in a very subtle sense, slowly choosing what he wants you to see at strategic times. The camera follows Steve as he goes to the window, but lands in an over-the-shoulder on him as it tucks itself behind Annie's back. Then, as Annie sits, the camera peds down with her, but maintains an OTS on Steve. Again, we still don't cut back to her coverage. She stays hidden. As Annie gets up, the camera stays stationary at first, allowing Annie to completely block the camera. This looks to be, but could potentially not be, a cutting point for this oneer. This allows them to split this oneer up into two separate shots and then stitch them together later at this point. The camera then subtly pans and tilts with Annie's movement as she puts her family in place. Subjective to Annie now.
I need you both to concentrate.
Once her family is set, the camera begins to dolly in on them, further adding an intensity to the moment. It continues to dolly in, cutting Peter off and focusing on Annie and Steve.
I'm a medium, okay? I was seeing apparitions earlier and I just shook them off and I shouldn't have. Please, I know how it sounds, but there's no way to talk about it. I just need to show you, okay? Please, you'll see. I'm completely lucid.
Peter, go to bed.
In an interesting movement, the camera pans over to Peter as Annie looks over to him. I love this dual point of view shot that constantly blends Annie's point of view with little spices from the director's point of view. Now, we're in a two-shot on Annie and Peter as Annie goes back to Steve. The camera cuts Peter out and goes back to a two-shot with Steve and Annie. The camera begins to dolly back out as she has finally succeeded in individually coaxing each family member to stay.
I promise. Okay, good. So, I read that earlier. I don't think I need to read that again.
What language?
It lands in a three-shot and stops as Annie's mood calms down.
Charlie? Charlie, are you here?
Shot number 2. We get our first cut here out of the oneer and into the coverage. This shot appears to be on a 50mm lens, if I had to guess, which starts on Steve as he looks over to Annie. In an objective movement, Aster pans the camera right over to Annie.
Charlie, it's Mommy. And Daddy and Peter.
Shot number 3. Just as the camera has begun to calm down a bit and become somewhat still, this shot comes along. It starts on the side of the 180-degree line that we've been on so far, and as Peter hears a creak over his shoulder, the camera trucks right and pans left, rotating around Peter. This movement here is highly effective as Charlie's spirit is beginning to become present. The camera crosses the line visually within the shot to show the audience a change of events or a dramatic shift in the scene. Before this moment, we were brought into the room unsure of Annie and what was about to happen. Now, this is the moment where the audience's main question begins to be answered. Will she or will she not be able to summon the spirit of her daughter Charlie? And that, to me, deserves a significant shift. A shot just like this. Shot number 4. This could be a continuation of shot number 2, and the editor decided to place shot 3 in to add to the shift in the scene, but for now, we'll call it a new shot. The camera starts on a medium close-up on Annie, then tilts down and dollies back, and peds up at the same time, ending in a high-angle 3-shot. To me, now that Charlie's spirit is in the room, the camera takes on her point of view now, looking down on her family. Now there is a potential 4th perspective in the room that Ari Aster can use. Shot number 5. We cut to a stacked 3-shot of the family, with the focus set on Steve at first. Then it racks focus to Peter in the foreground, and ultimately racks to Annie at the end as both Steve and Peter look at her. Shot number 6.
Yes!
In the first moment of definitive supernatural activity in the scene, the camera quickly dollies backwards with the glass, focused on it, then tilts up and racks focus to the family's reaction. Shot number 7. Quickly we cut to a close-up on Steve's reaction. Shot number 8. A close-up of Peter's reaction. Shot number 9, we start pulled back a little bit in a wide shot that's on an angle of the family, but we're on a circular track that is going to rotate around the table, around the family. The performances here are spectacular, and Ari Aster just lets them play out in real time, not allowing the audience to look away from the terrifying event that Annie is putting her family through. It's as if we are, again, Charlie, as she is watching her family fight in front of her.
Keep going. Stop it! We need to keep our fingers touching. You are
scaring him!
No, I am
It
not.
builds and builds until...
Listen to me. There is no need to be scared. This is your sister.
Shot number 10, Charlie's spirit breaks the glass behind them. The camera starts on an insert of the glass breaking and whip pans left to the family as they turn around to see what occurred behind them. Keep in mind, this is a similar geographical location in the room to where the creak occurred earlier that Peter heard. Shot number 11, we cut back to a wide frontal shot of the family as they are all aware of Charlie's presence now. It's all becoming too real. There is no doubt that she's here. The music
Charlie?
stops, the camera doesn't
What's
move,
wrong?
which primes us for this jump scare. The flame shoots out of the candle. The camera stays stationary afterwards as things go silent again. Again, with a fantastic performance by Toni Collette, she appears to become inhabited by Charlie. Shot 12. By fantastically misdirecting the audience's attention, Ari Aster is able to keep them on their toes through this scene every step of the way. The camera peds down with Steve as he looks under the table for any sort of explanation as to what just occurred. While we're down here, we begin to hear this otherworldly sound. The audience knows what happened in the previous shot, and by withholding what is going on with Annie and following Steve, this creates a sense of uneasiness with the audience. People have always been scared of the dark. What we cannot see frightens us the most. As Steve hears the sound, we see his reaction, but choose to tilt up with him to an over-the-shoulder on him. The shot then racks focus to Annie to see what just happened. Now all eyes are on Annie as this event begins to take a new turn.
Hello?
Shot number 13, a close-up on Annie as she has been taken over by Charlie's spirit. We see in a full-on, unforgiving close-up what is happening.
Mom?
I don't like this.
Shot 14, a close-up on Peter's reaction.
Dad, I don't like this.
What's happening?
Please stop.
Shot 15,
What's going
a
on?
close-up on Steve's reaction. The editing begins to quicken here as all parties are sufficiently freaked out, cutting back to shot 12 with its focus on Annie. Back to shot 14 on Peter, back to shot 15 on Steve, back to shot 12 again on Annie. It's interesting to note that we don't cut back to Annie's close-up here. It could be for a few reasons, but I believe it's a combination of a couple. One is that Toni Collette's performance is so amazing and theatrical and big that it deserves a wider viewpoint. We deserve to see everything that she's doing. And two, seeing how she is affecting others makes her more terrifying. So including Steve in the frame is crucial to showing what she's doing to her family. This is supported by having the camera pan with Steve as he moves to the other room.
Why are you scaring me?
Make it stop! Make it fucking stop!
Back to shot 13, the close-up on Annie. Back to shot 14 on Peter as Steve turns the light on. Back to shot 13 on Annie. Shot 16, the scene culminates as the editing quickens and then cuts out to a wide-angled shot as Steve splashes Annie in the face with a glass of water, snapping her and the audience out of the horrific scene. Shot 17, a wide reverse of shot 16 and over the shoulder on Annie with Peter and Steve on the right and Annie isolated on the left as she sees what she has done to her family. Back to shot 16 to see what she's done to them, and we end on shot 17.
What happened?
Back to reality.